So we do first the Namgyalma mantra. Omo namo bhagavate sarva trilokya prati vishishtaya buddhayate nama Tayata om brum 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 Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Asama Samanta Avabhasparanakati Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Abhishinjantu Mam Sarva Tata Gata Sugata Vara Vachana Amrita Abhishekera Mahamudra Mantra Pade Ahara Ahara Mama Ayo Sandarani Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Ushnisha Vijaya Parishuddhe Sahasra Rasmi Sanchodite Sarva Tatagat Avalokini Shat Paramita Paripurani Sarva Tatagata Mate Dasha Bhumi Pratishtite Sarva Tatagata Hridaya Adishtana Adishtite Mudre Mudre Mahamud Vajrakaya Samantana Parishuddhe Avarana Vishuddhe Prati Nivartaya Mama Ayur Vishuddhe Sarva Tatagata Samaya Adishtana Adishtite Muni Muni Mahamuni Muni Vi Muni Mahavi Muni Mati Mati Mahamati Mamati Sumati Tatata Bhuta Koti Parishuddhe Visputa Buddhishuddhe He He Jaya Jaya Vijaya Vijaya Smara Smara Spara Spara Sparaya Sparaya Sarva Buddha Adhishtana Adhishtite Shuddhe Shuddhe Buddhe Buddhe Vajre Vajre Maha Vajre Su Vajra Garbe Jaya Garbe Vijaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Satvanam Cha Kaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Gatascha Mam Samas Vasayantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Siddhaya Bodhaya Bodhaya Vibodaya Vibodaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimocha Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhe Sarva Tatagat Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Mahamudra Mahamudra Pade Svoha Omo Brum Svoha Omo Amrita Ayurdate Svoha Omo Ahum Tramri Mama Sarva Sattvamscha Raksha Raksha Kuru Svoha Omo Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhihum Omo Amite Amitodbhave Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Kamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare sarva klesha kshaya kariye svoha. Jetsun lame kutse raptenchi namkara tinle chochurge. Tempe drume sasumgi drove munse tatu ne gyurchi. Locho sambo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarmoda. Pege drolor zampe zeprache palden lame shabla solvade. Omo a guru vajradara sumatimo nisha sanekar. Uta vardani shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Oma guru vajradara sumatimo nisha sanekar. Uta vardani shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Oma guru vajradara sumatimo nisha sanekar. Uta vardani shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Pakyuke kudandagi lo, pakyuke sundandagi, tudandagi ye, tenyerme chikto jingi lo. Makyuke kudandagi lo, makyuke sundandagi nga, makyuke tudandagi ye, tenyerme chikto jingi lo. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Soha. Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonamgi Drola Penchira Sangye Druparish Sangye chedan sogi chonamla chancho bhardo dani kyapsuchi dagi cheshe gibe sonamgi la pinchre sangye druparishu. Sangye chedan sogi chonamla chancho bhardo dani kyapsuchi dagi cheshe gibe sonamgi Trola pinchra sangye druparishu. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni, possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. So, there are many praises that were written for Buddha Shakyamuni, many praises in which, many texts in which Buddha is praised out his qualities of body, speech, mind, and so on. But for me, one of the most beautiful and one of the most important praises that was ever written to Buddha Shakyamuni is a prayer written by Lama Tsongkhapa called in Tibetan Tendre Töpa. Tendre means interdependence, Töpa means praise, interdependence, in which Lama Tsongkhapa praises Buddha Shakyamuni for him having taught interdependence as the most important thing that Buddha have ever done. And really, if we look, Buddha gave many teachings, very special in many, 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 many ways. But the most important thing, the most beautiful, the most powerful, the deepest one is interdependence. Even if we look in the Vajrayana, the basis is interdependence. So, it's so important for us to understand the beauty, the importance of emptiness, of correct view of reality, of interdependence, basically. It's something that, yesterday we were talking about it and we were making an introduction to understand we need to understand interdependence. And basically what we saw is that we suffer mostly because we experience reality and in an incoherent way with what reality actually is. And in order for us to be well, in order for us to live in harmony with ourselves and others, we must experience reality, our own reality, ourselves and others, in a coherent way. And that's what interdependence is all about. Interdependence is all about understanding not only conceptually, it's the first step is conceptually, but understanding deeply the way how things are, which is interdependence. And not only understanding interdependence, we need to experience it. When we look, we need to perceive interdependence. When we listen, we need to perceive interdependence. When we touch, we need to perceive interdependence. It must be part of ourselves. And that's not so simple. First, we need to understand. After, we need to familiarize ourselves to a certain level that it's part of us. We don't even need to think about it anymore. It's always present there. And in order to do that, we need to reflect upon it in many, many different ways, again and again, and meditate deeply on it, and so on. And this is the process through which actually Shantideva is guiding us on the 9th chapter of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. But before we get that, first of all, we need to have at least some understanding of what is interdependence. That's what, very briefly, I want to tell today. But really, for me, the more I think about interdependence, the more I reflect upon it, the more I meditate, the more I study, the more I fall in love with it. It's really something that the taste gets better and better. And I remember, one time there was a text, which for me is a very important text, which is the commentary on the three main aspects of the path, written by Paponka Deche Nyingpo. And when I read it, I don't know, maybe 20 times or more. And there is a part specifically talking about interdependence. And there is one part there which is talking about the three levels of interdependence. And I read it many, many times. Maybe in the 15th time that I was reading it, suddenly I got something, I'm not saying I got it, but I got something. And it's so special when we get something. When we read the same words that are written there, we read it again and again and again and again and again and again, and suddenly they come with a different meaning. Suddenly it becomes clear. So, when we talk about interdependence, about emptiness, correct view of reality, which actually we're talking about the same things, it's not enough to listen once, it's not enough to read once, it's not enough to meditate or reflect upon it once. That's at least my own experience. We need to do it again and again and again and again, because we are conditioned in such a different way that we need to do it again and again, think about it again and again, and suddenly, slowly, things will come more clear to us. Okay? We have a different experience about it. But before having such an experience, we need first we need to start to understand what is interdependence. So what I'm going to try to do now is to share a little bit with you what, at least, is my understanding of interdependence, okay, according to the teachings. And then after that, today we'll go back to the text. We are in verse 104 of the 9th chapter. So we'll go back to the text a little bit after, okay? So, I try to go directly to the point, okay? But there are a few points that we need to establish. So, the first thing is to understand, not understand from the point of view of only intellectually understanding, because we could pass hours here talking about high philosophy, whatever. We need to perceive, we need to see, need to understand our own way of experiencing reality, first thing. Not only reflecting about something abstract. We need to look, observe, how do I experience reality? That's very important, first thing. Because all of this stuff about interdependence is related to our own experience. Not something that should be related to something outside of us. Okay? So, when we see something, when we listen to something, when we touch, when we feel a sensation of joy, of pleasure, of fear, whatever. Okay? For example, we wake up in the morning and we see the sun. We open the window, we see the sun. Or at this very right moment, we look at the booklet in our front. How does all of this appear to us? Does it appear as being something that exists in a complex interdependence way? Or it simply appears to be what it is? The sun is the sun is there, the booklet is the booklet is there. If we take, for example, the example I gave yesterday, the bell. Okay? And I ask to you, without having any philosophical answer, very normal way, how do we experience things? Why is it a bell? Because it's a bell. There is no real any specific answer for that. Why it's a bell? Because it's a bell. But not without philosophic mind. Just in our own way of experience, When we ask to ourselves, why it's a bell, what's the answer we give? Because it's a bell. That's what we think about. That's how we see things. Okay, why is this the booklet of the mantra of Ushinisha Vijaya? Because that's what it is. It's written in it, Come on. Okay, so why is the sun the sun? Because the sun is the sun. You don't need to give any more explanations about things. Things are what they are. And that's how we experience reality. Okay? When we look at things, when we feel things, we experience things not in a non-conceptual way, as if they existed for what they are, there, independently of us. If we look from another way, how do we experience reality? How, when we look at the bell, does the bell exist as a bell objectively or subjectively? Objectively. In an objective way. That's how we experience phenomena. That's how we experience reality normally. Okay? And actually, it's a very, very important start point to see how do we experience reality. And really, Shantideva himself in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara talks about this saying, Takpengola marek partingu mit zimaing. Without entering in contact with the designated object, it's not possible to perceive its known existence. But the point is that without seeing, perceiving, which is not seeing, I mean like we need to feel, we need to touch the way how we perceive reality. By doing that, we can understand that it's wrong. Otherwise, we will just stay in an intellectual game about interdependence and this and that, and we do not touch our own experience of reality. And it's very important for us to do that. Okay? So let's see again. Let's observe. How do I see? When I listen to the sound, where is the sound? It's there. How does it exist? As a nice sound or as a not nice sound? But does it exist in dependence with the observer or not? The way how we experience it. No. It exists in dependence with someone hitting the singing bowl. The maximum we may get, But it doesn't exist in dependence with the observer. It exists as it is. When we listen to someone talking, when we see something, it exists as it appears. And this is called inherent existence. Phenomena appear to us to exist inherently, in an autonomous way. Phenomena appear to us and we experience them as if they existed out of their own characteristics. Okay, can we see that? Okay, it's very important for us to be able to somehow touch it. Okay. Trying to get to be quite objective about interdependence. No? as we have just seen, when we look at phenomena, they appear as if they existed out of their own characteristics. And we asked, why is this a bell? It's a bell because it's a bell. Why it's a glass because it's a glass. Why it's a booklet because it's a booklet. Okay? But now let's try to analyze things. Let's try to observe how they actually are, what they actually are. So let's take for instance the booklet. Okay. The booklet is composed into parts. The booklet doesn't exist independently of its own parts. Okay? What are the parts that compose this sadhana, this booklet? We have the cover, right? We have the pages inside. There is the paper. There is ink. There are images. There are words, letters, right? All of this together composes the book. So, does the booklet exist independently of its own parts? If I take away the pages, does the booklet exist? No. If I take away the cover, does the booklet exist? No. If I take away the words that are written inside, does the booklet exist? No. So, the booklet does not exist independently of its own parts, right? But what does it make? What makes it a booklet and not a bunch of printed pages in my hand? Because if I say I have 3 printed pages in my hand, is that correct? Yes. No? I have 3 sheets of paper, which are actually it's not really correct to say I have pages, because pages, the front is one page, the back is another page, so it's more than 3 pages, but whatever. If I have 3 sheets of paper printed in my hand. Is that correct? What makes it a booklet? The fact that it's binded and it has 2 little metal things inside that makes it folded. Does this make it a booklet? No. The fact that there is a cover and then there are pages and then it's folded together and I can read it and I can recite the mantra of Nam Gyalma by reading it, does this make it a booklet? No. Couldn't it simply be few pages put together that I can read the mantra out from it? Yes. So actually, what is a booklet? Where is the booklet? If we really try to find it, there is only one way to find the booklet. The booklet is nothing more, nothing less than the name booklet, which brings within it concepts, which brings within it characteristics and functions attributed, assigned to a collection of parts. So the booklet is nothing more, nothing less than a name attributed to a collection of parts. You cannot find the booklet anywhere else. Is the booklet in the pages? Is the booklet if I put all the pages together with the cover, bind it nicely and everything else, does this make a booklet out of it? Does this mean I have a booklet? Actually not. I can have many pages nicely bound together. Bound together. So, I can have many pages bound together very nicely. Does this make it a booklet? No. What makes it a booklet? Actually, what is a booklet, to be more precise? A booklet is not a union of pages, nicely bound. A booklet is the name booklet assigned, attributed to a collection of parts that can sustain the functions and the characteristics of the name that was assigned to it. That's what is a booklet. Nothing more than that. What is a bell? The question we did before. If we do not analyze it, the bell is a bell. That's all. Why? Because it can make a nice sound. That's why. But why actually, if we really analyze it, what makes it a bell? What is a bell if we really analyze it? A bell is nothing more, nothing less than the name bell, which means characteristics and functions attributed, assigned to a collection of parts. In other words, we say a bell is nothing more, nothing less than the mere imputation of the name bell on the basis of imputation. We cannot find a bell anywhere else. We can look everywhere, we can be very careful, we can check in every way. We cannot find the bell anywhere else other than the imputation of the name bell on a collection of parts that can fulfill the functions and the characteristics of the name that it was attributed to it. We simply cannot find it anywhere else. Why this is a bell? Because we have given such a name. If I want to say that this is a glass, can it be a glass? What makes of this object a glass? The name. And the fact that the collection of parts is able to fulfill the characteristics and the functions of such name. Because if I call this a sandwich, does it make us a sandwich? Why not? Because it cannot fulfill the characteristics and functions of the name sandwich. Okay? That's why it's a wrong perception. But it's a glass. Why it's a glass? Because I'm saying it's a glass. Even though back in my mind I'm saying, no, it's a bell. Why? Why in the back of our mind we say, okay, even if though we use a glass, I can put water in it, I can drink out of it. Why we say it, okay, nice glass, okay, philosophically speaking, yes, it's a glass. But anyhow, we are using the bell as a glass. Why? Because the way how the phenomena appear to us is as if they existed out of their own characteristics. The way how this object appears to me appears inherently, autonomously as a bell. But if we really analyze it, what is the bell? The bell is nothing more, nothing less than the name bell attributed to a union of parts. The same thing is with my sensations, my joy, my sadness, my happiness, my fears, my body, myself. What is Lama Michel? Where is Lama Michel? What is he? No? Or everyone else. Lama Michel is nothing more, nothing less than a name attributed to a collection of parts. That's it. If I go to look for myself, my, I, where is me? What is I? And I go to look and I try and I check, what am I? And I try to find this self. For myself or for you. I cannot find Lama Michel, me, other than the name Lama Michel, which is characteristics and functions, attributed to a collection of parts. Nothing more than that. The same thing is with anger, with jealousy, with joy, with love, compassion, and everything else that exists. Okay? So here we have two very, very important pillars that we need to make them stable in order for us to go on with the text. The first pillar is phenomena appear to us as being of inherent existence. Why it's a bell? Because it's a bell. That's how it appears to me. Second pillar, nothing exists as it is, independently of the name attributed to it on a collection of parts. Everything is a mere imputation of the name, exists independence of the mere imputation. Even more, everything is nothing more, nothing less than an imputation of the name on the basis of a collection of parts. The question is not where is the bell is in the imputation of the name. The bell is the imputation of the name on a collection of parts put together. This is how everything is. So these are the two very solid bases we need. But until we reflect upon it regarding the bell and the glass and the booklet, it's easier. When we need to reflect upon the fact that our sensation of joy or our sensation of suffering is nothing more, nothing less than a name, suffering, attributed to a collection of parts. It's not so easy. Okay? So there are many levels of reflection that we need to go through. We need to reflect, we need to meditate, we need to reflect, we need to observe that phenomena is nothing more, nothing less than a mere imputation of the name. The example I was giving before also is that we need to do this in many levels. We take the booklet, for instance. It has, what is the booklet? Is the name, booklet, imputed, attributed to a collection of parts. What are the parts? Cover and pages, okay? Let's take, for instance, one part, the cover. Does the cover exist independently of its own parts? No. What is the cover if we analyze it? The cover is nothing more, nothing less than the name cover assigned to a unity of parts. What are the parts? I have the front, the back, the drawings, and so on. The mandala drawing that I have here is one of the parts of the cover. What is the mandala here? That is drawn here. The mandala drawing is nothing more, nothing less than a name, mandala drawing, attributed to a union of parts. Then I take what are the parts of the mandala. I have the different sides, up, down, left, right, and so on. I have the lotus around. Then I take one little petal of the lotus, this red one here. What is the little red petal of the lotus? It's nothing more, nothing less than a name, little red petal of the lotus, attributed to a union of parts. Then I take little line that is inside of it. That is one of the parts of the little petal of the lotus. And then, what is the line? Nothing more, nothing less than the name line assigned to a union of parts. And like this I can go until infinity. There is no limit. So nothing exists independently of the attribution of the name. Nothing exists independently of the concept, which means the characteristics and the functions that we assign to it, based on its parts. In Tibetan it's called Tokpe Taktsam. Chotam che Tokpe Taktsam. Tokpa means Tratun Trerun tu Zimpeshen Regisheba. Tokpa basically is like a mental image that we have of something that is based on something that we have seen or something that we have listened, which is a concept, a general concept that we have of something, that we assign that to an object. Okay? That's what we mean by the imputation of the name. And nothing exists independently of that. Okay? So this is the point. But in order for us to understand this, it takes time. We need to reflect upon many, many, many different levels. So, just one last example before we go to the text. When we actually analyze the lack of inherent existence of a book, of a bell, and so on, is easier. When we start to observe the lack of inherent existence of our sensations, of our emotions, and so on, it gets a little bit more difficult. Okay? But let's try to make an example. When we get in front of an object, there is objects of attraction, objects of aversion. I am in front of an object of attraction, and what's the reaction? Attachment, desire. I am in front of an object of aversion. What's the reaction? Aversion, anger, and so on. Okay? So I see something, I see it as something that it's good for me. I want to be near to it. I see something that I see as something that is harmful to me. I want to create distance from it. Okay? Then, when we have these emotions, our object of attachment, object of desire, object of fear, of jealousy, of envy, and so on, how does it appear to us? As being something autonomous, inherently existing by its own characteristics, or it exists in dependence of the value that I am attributing to it? Exists by itself. That's why, what is our reaction? Or I want to get it for me, or I want to put it away, because it is something good or it is something bad by itself. Okay? Now, there is one time I was with Rinpoche. I was driving, actually, coming back from Milan. Rinpoche was at the seat nearby me. And we were coming back from Milan. There is a point where there is a place where you pay the toll. And then just after that, there is a turn going to the left side, going down. I just like to say, because whenever I pass there, I remember this moment. And then when we were there, Rinpoche was talking. He gave me an example, which I like to make a little bit more colorful. But basically, the example was, let's take, for instance, you are in a shop, and you see something you like. Let's say a jacket, okay, a coat. And then you look at this jacket and you say, oh, what a beautiful jacket. Oh, it's really so nice. Look at the color. I like this color. And then, oh, and the cloth is so good, the material, and the way how it's the shape, it's so nice. I want it. No, I really need it. You know, now it's time for New Year. There is the New Year party. I have the pair of trousers, which I need something that goes well with it. So I need that jacket. It's really fitting well. Oh, I must get this jacket. And then we start somehow, to look, and we start to flirt with the jacket. And we start looking at it and saying, oh, yes, I want you, but how nice the jacket is. And we start to see how much does it cost. And then the first reaction, oh, it's expensive. And then maybe we say, okay, but I really need it. Okay, I will not expend money in something else, so I will get a jacket. Or I say, okay, whatever I want, I pay for it. Whatever thoughts come to our mind. We are there really looking. At that moment, why do we want the jacket? Because it's a beautiful jacket, and I need it, and I want it. Why it's an object of desire? Because it is an object of desire by its own characteristics. That's how we see it at the moment. Then as we are there together with the jacket, we are thinking, oh yes, and because I want to go to this party, and there is going to be that person in the party, and I need to show myself beautiful, so I need to wear the jacket. And then as we are there, suddenly arrives the person that we want to show ourselves with the jacket. The person comes by and says, oh, hello, you here in this shop? Oh, okay, nice. And then look at the jacket and say, oh, what an ugly thing, huh? How can anyone have the courage to wear something like that? It's really terrible. And look at the price. Someone really needs to be so stupid to pay such amount of money for something with such a bad quality. Oh, people are really crazy nowadays, huh? And then the person goes away. Goodbye, okay, and there are we and the jacket. Is it the same jacket as before, or something has changed? Nobody came working for the shop and changed the jacket. Huh? Simply what happened is that our way of perception changed. The value that we attribute to it changed. Is it still an object of desire as before? We may say, oh, actually, yeah, it's really a little bit too expensive. Maybe better I don't buy it. If we are a little bit proud, we do not accept to ourselves that we are not buying it because the other person said it's not beautiful. We find some other excuse for it. But the truth is, it's not an object of desire as it was before. So, actually, in the moment, let's take another way. We are in front of the jacket. And then suddenly we ask ourselves, what is the jacket? The jacket not only as jacket, the jacket as the object of desire. Okay? What is the beautiful jacket that I have in front of me? What is the jacket? Where is the jacket? And we start to analyze it. And suddenly we realize that the jacket is nothing more, the beautiful jacket is nothing more, nothing less than a value, a name that we are assigning to a collection of parts. The beautiful jacket doesn't exist by itself. We have anger to someone, and suddenly we try to look, where is the object of anger? And we analyze it, and we find out that the object of anger only exists as a name that we are attributing based on a collection of parts. What happened at the moment? The desire for the jacket fades away. The anger goes away because it doesn't have any more a solid base. Okay. So, in the moment we have a strong emotion towards something, attraction, aversion, whatever emotion we have, the way how we relate to that object is basically that it exists by its own characteristics as it is. But in the moment that I realize it doesn't exist as it appears to me, it's just the fact that I am assigning this value to it. That anger or jealousy or envy, it fades away. So, someone one time asked me, but what's the real right way to see things? A person comes to me and say many negative things to me and does something which is not good, so it becomes an object of anger, an object of aversion. Is it really? Is it right or is it wrong? For me not to see it as an object of aversion, am I not faking myself? I am not trying to not to see things as they are? No. The point is the following. What is the only difference between an object of anger, an object of indifference, and an object of compassion? The name we assign to it. Can be the same words, the same situation. I can see it as an object of attraction, or I can see it as an object of compassion. I can see it as an object of anger. I can see it as an object of indifference. The real difference comes of the result that it brings to me to relate myself in one way or in another. Because from the point of view of reality, the right perception is the one that the parts together can fulfill the functions and characteristics that we are assigning to it. And there are many, 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 many possibilities. So, you say, oh, this person said this to me. It's already wrong when we say this person said. We should say, I listened to this. I understood this, and that. And let's say, yes, very objectively, the person said this, and it happened like that, and so on. Still, what is the right way of seeing it? If I see it as an object of anger, and it can fulfill the functions and characteristics that I am assigning to it, from the point of view of reality, is a wrong perception? No, I'm not crazy. But if I see it as an object of indifference, can it fulfill that function? Yes. If I see it as an object of compassion, can it fulfill that function? Yes. So, the point is, when I relate myself to other phenomena, I have the freedom to choose. in which way I want to relate. Freedom to choose they are all correct ways. And when I choose the right way, what's the right way? The one that brings benefit for myself and others. The ones that eliminate suffering. Because if I relate myself in a way that would generate more conflict and more suffering and more problems, that's not a good way. But we're not talking about living in the world of Hello Kitty and everything is wonderful and I try not to close my eyes to everything. It's not that. It's the fact of understanding that nothing exists independently of the value that we assign to it, of the name that we give to it. And we can give thousands of different names that function, that are correct. So we have the freedom to choose how we want to relate to things. We do have this freedom. So we need to apply this freedom to our life. Okay? On the unity of the parts, we assign a value based on many things, actually. We assign a value normally based on our own experiences of the past. We assign a value based on many, many different aspects. But we have the freedom to assign a value even in a more conscious way. Okay? But in order to be able to use our freedom, we must understand that we have the potential to do it. That things that do not exist as they appear to us in such a solid way. Okay? So this is what we talk about interdependence. But now let's at least read one verse of the book, okay? Yini wangnam lamite lamine sukso laming parnang ming nangna seming chiming shin shentu yangni nye maying kangshi lumi shentu ming dreming lokswang karmepa teni chungse ming teichir semche rangshi nyange de namshe nga rangshin ki mebar tempa sheja lengar she yona teni chila mikne ke shedan sheja lenchik na teni chila mikne ke wente sheje chi yona tetse sheba kangle ke. Okay. So we are in the part of the text, verse 102 of the 9th chapter, which are called the 4 anchors of awareness. The 4 anchors of awareness is the awareness to the body, the awareness to the mind, to sensations, the awareness to the mind, and the awareness to phenomenon. So these are 4 points of which we meditate, and in this case, the 4 points to which we should meditate on the lack of inherent existence. Okay? So we are now in the point which is meditating on the lack of inherent existence of the mind. Okay? So I will just read first the text in English, then I will go back to Italian. A mind is not situated in cognitive sensors, in sights and so on, nor in the space in between. A mind isn't inside, nor is it outside, nor can it be found, in fact, anywhere else. Something that isn't the body nor something else, neither commingled nor separated in any way, isn't anything truly existent at all. Because of that, limited beings are by nature released in paranirvana. If cognition of something were prior to what it cognized, then what is it to be aimed at for its arising to occur? And if a cognition were simultaneous with what it cognized, still, what is it to be aimed for? Is it to be aimed at for its arising to occur? Yet, if it occurred after what it cognized, then from what did the cognition of it arise? Similarly, it can be determined that there is a truly existent arising of anything. It can't be determined that there is a truly existent arising of any phenomenon. So, very briefly, without going into many details, Yini wangnam lamine sukso lamin parnang ming nang na senmin tenmin shing, shendu yangni nye mayin. Kang shi lu min shendu min, dre min lok suan karme pa, teni chungse min te chir, semche rangshin yange de. The first thing that is difficult for us to reflect and observe the lack of inherent existence of the mind is that first of all we are not used to observe the mind. We don't really have much habit in to look at the mind and try to understand where is the mind, what is the mind, are already quite difficult questions for us. So here it says, a mind is not situated in cognitive sensors, in sights and so on, nor in the space in between. A mind isn't inside, nor is it outside, nor it can be found, in fact, anywhere else. Something that isn't the body nor something else, neither commingled nor separated in any way, isn't anything truly existing at all. Because of that, limited beings are by nature released in paranirvana. So, let's take for instance the mind that perceives the blue of the sky. Okay? Does the mind that perceives the blue of the sky, the cognition of the blue of the sky, exists independently of the blue of the sky? The mind that perceives the bell, does it exist independently of the bell? No. Now, try to find a mind that exists independently of its object of perception. It doesn't exist. Okay? But when we think about the mind that perceives the bell, how does it appear to us? As existing independence with the bell, or is existing by itself? By itself. We have the tendency to see the observer and the object of perception as two separate entities in a dualistic way. But if we analyze, they are non-dual. The mind that perceives the bell doesn't exist without the bell. But the bell doesn't exist with the mind that perceives it. Who came first? It's like one example that is given in text is we have Pari and Tsuri within Tibet. It's like two mountains, okay? We have two hills, or a mountain. And I am in one hill, and it's this hill. And the other hill is called that hill. And I get down from this hill, and I go to that hill. What that hill has become? This hill. And what that hill had become? This hill had become that hill. So this hill and that hill exist independent one with the other. That hill only exists because the hill in which I am is this hill. Okay? And this hill is only this hill because the other one is that hill. This and that, big and small, there are many, many things that only exists one independence of the other. Similar to that is the relation between mind and object of perception. So, as I said, it's difficult for us, first of all, because we're not even used to observe our mind so much, to think about what is the mind, where is the mind. So the question that is put here is that if the mind is only inside, how can it perceive objects that are outside? If the mind is outside, then we have another problem. Okay? So, the mind is not inherently inside, is not inherently outside, is not in between the two objects of perception. So where is actually the mind? The mind is in the union, is in the interdependence that exists between object of perception and perceiver. The mind is in our 5, 6 senses actually. Eye, ear, mouth, taste, nose, and body, touch, and the mind itself, memories, ideas, and so on. So, when here in the text is saying the mind is not here or is not there, it means it's not inherently in this place or inherently in the other. The mind only exists, if we really go to analyze where is the mind, we can only find the mind in the interdependence of the whole. We cannot find the mind separately at one point or at another. Okay? This is one of the problems that I think that we have very often, even in our own culture and science and so on. We try to look for something in a specific place. And we cannot find the mind in a specific place. Is the mind in the head? No. There are many examples of people that have perceptions when the brain is totally not functioning and they can still have experiences. So, how then is the mind only in the brain? Is that the mind is not simply the functions of neurons? Is it connected with it? Sure. Is it independent of it? Not really. It has a dependence of it. But at the same time, the mind is not only that. Can the mind exist independently of the objects of perception? Not at all. Even try to think about something that is not connected with our five senses. We are looking for it. First of all, can we see anything? Can we have any thought that is not connected with an object of perception of our five senses? No. Okay. We work on relations. So our mind doesn't exist independently of its own objects of perception. For example, the mind that perceives the blue of the sky doesn't exist independently of the blue of the sky. The mind that perceives the bell doesn't exist independently of the bell. And like this is for everything else. So as the text says, a mind is not situated in cognitive sensors. It's not only in the eye, only in the ear, sense, and so on. Nor is in the space in between the object and the senses. A mind isn't inside, nor is outside, nor it can be found, in fact, anywhere else. The mind is not inside of us, nor it's outside of us, nor but it cannot be found anywhere else. So where is the mind? Is in the union of both, is in the interdependence. In other words, the mind is interdependent. The problem here is that we are looking for a mind that is an inherently existing mind. And an inherently existing mind doesn't exist. So we can never find it. The only way to find a mind is looking for an interdependent mind. Is looking for a mind that exists in dependence with its object of perception. That is connected to the body, but is not only the body. That is connected to the object of perception, but is not the object of perception. Okay? Something that isn't in the body, that isn't the body nor something else, neither commingled nor separated in any way, isn't anything truly existent at all. The mind isn't anything that exists out of its own characteristics at all. But the point here is that when we observe, for example, now, we look at an object, whatever object we choose. I'm looking at the bell. When I observe the mind, when I observe the bell, can I observe the mind that observes the bell somehow? Yes. How does it appear to me? As existing in dependence with the bell or existing independently of the bell? Independently. If we analyze it, we see that actually it exists in dependence, but it appears to us as existing independently. That's our wrong view. Okay. That's the mind exists as being independent of the object of perception. I have reflected upon this for a long time. And I was in a big doubt. Maybe I think it was like 2 years that I was always thinking about this. Because it had the point that all phenomena exist in dependence of the imputation of the name. Then I was thinking, okay, but then what happens to the mind? There is the mind that imputes the name bell. Okay. And who is perceiving the bell? The mind that perceives the bell. Then I have the mind that perceives the mind that perceives the bell. And then I have the mind that perceives 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 the bell. And then we go to infinite. So this is not working. Okay? And I was even doing debate about this. Some of you, when we were in Tibet, sometimes I was debating about this. Because I had the doubts, really. So I really need to find an answer. So anytime I had the opportunity, I was making debate about it. I could never get an answer. Even one time I went to Tibet and I was with my teacher there, the Abbot of Tashilhoma, and I made this question to him. Then he simply looked at me and he said, "One day you will understand." I said, "Okay." So some time passed, and 2 years after the question, I was together with him studying one text of Lama Tsongkhapa about emptiness, which is the Umagompa Rapsel, the clear commentary on the middle way of entering the middle way of Nagarjuna. So we were reading that, and there was a part which was talking about the mind that perceives itself, and suddenly it all made sense. So the point is the following, which I arrived. When we say that everything exists independent of the imputation of the name, and the mind exists independent of the imputation of the name, this doesn't mean that the mind to exist needs to have a mind that is perceiving itself and imputing the name on it. It means that it needs to have an object that is imputing the name on it. Which means the mind that perceives the bell exists. Why? Because the bell exists. Why the bell exists? Because the mind that perceived it exists. One exists independent of the other. Can the mind that perceived the bell, can it be perceived by another mind? Yes. But this doesn't mean that in order for it to exist, it must have someone that is observing it. Everything exists as a mere imputation of the name. The mind is part of the imputation of the name. But it doesn't exist without the basis of imputation. It doesn't exist without the object that is perceiving. So in other words, internal reality and external reality are of the same nature. One does not exist without the other. Okay? They are complementary. And we have the tendency to see them as something completely separated. But they are not. Okay? So we live here for today. Chetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkar trinle chochur gepa dang losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove musel tatu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin Nintsen taktu delekpe Koncho sumke jingelo Koncho sumge ngodrup tsol Koncho sumge trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Om Ahuntemba Lame Sangye Rinpoche, Kyoba Lame Tamcho Rinpoche, Tremba Lame Gendo Rinpoche, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chepa Bu, Locho Sampo Pagyo Tai, Tuche Tempe Tinle Yarmo Da, Pege Droloza, Panden Lame Shela Chepa Bu.